The only light in the cramped, dusty studio was the single green on-air sign and the glow of an old analog mixer. For Leo, it was a sanctuary. The world outside, the relentless rain, the gnawing loneliness of a city that never slept but never spoke, faded away when the MIC was live. You're listening to Night Owls with Leo, on 99.7 WQRT. The time is 1:17 a.m., and the rain is your lullaby. This next one goes out to all the insomniacs, the dreamers, the ones keeping watch while the rest of the world sleeps. He queued up a melancholic jazz track and leaned back, the worn springs of his chair groaning in protest. WQRT was a relic, a low-wattage station broadcasting from the top of an aging apartment building, its signal barely reaching the city limits. But for its small, dedicated audience, it was a lifeline. The request line blinked. A single, steady red light. Caller ID read, unknown. Leo frowned. The line was supposed to be digitally forwarded, and unknown numbers were usually screened out. He shrugged, putting on his headphones. A little spontaneity never hurt. WQRT, you're on the air. The silence on the other end was thick, broken only by the faint hiss of the open line and the sound of rain, muffled, as if the caller was also in a car or another room. Then, a whisper. A young woman's voice, strained with fear. Is this real? Can anyone hear me? Loud and clear, Leo said, his radio voice smooth and calming. What's on your mind tonight? I'm not sure. I think I'm lost. Everything looks the same. A prickle ran down Leo's spine. This wasn't the usual lonely heart or drunk philosopher. Okay, stay calm. Where are you? What do you see? The rain. There's so much rain. And the streetlights, they're all out. Except one, at the end of the street. It's flickering. It makes the shadows move. Leo glanced out the studio window. The rain was pouring, but the streetlights on his block were functioning normally. He tapped a key, pulling up a traffic and weather feed. No reports of widespread outages. What's your name? He asked, keeping her talking. Chloe. Her voice trembled. I was just driving home from work. I took a shortcut. Cypress Lane. But it doesn't look right. The houses, their windows are all dark. Like no one's ever lived in them. Cypress Lane. Leo knew it. A quiet, tree-lined street in the old part of the city. He'd ridden his bike down it as a kid. Okay, Chloe. Just keep driving. You'll get to Main Street soon. Turn left, you'll see a 24-hour diner. You can call for help there. No, her whisper dropped even lower. The road, it just ends. There's a barrier. And behind it, it's just fog. Thick, white fog. I can't see through it. The jazz track ended. Leo quickly queued up another, something ambient and instrumental, buying time. A dead end on Cypress Lane? That was impossible. It was a through road. Chloe, can you turn around? I tried. The road behind me is gone too. It's just fog. I'm trapped on this street. A sob hitched in her throat. There's someone here. Leo's blood ran cold. What do you mean? A man. He's standing under the flickering light. He's just standing there. He has no face. It's just dark. This was escalating from a prank to something deeply unsettling. Leo muted his MIC and grabbed his personal phone. He dialed the non-emergency line for the police. Dispatch, this is Leo Madsen from WQRT. I have a caller on the air who says she's trapped on Cypress Lane, claims there's a man threatening her. The dispatcher's voice was bored. Cypress Lane? We've had no calls from that area. Units are patrolling there now. It's quiet. But she's on the phone with me right now. Sir, we'll send a car to do a drive-by. But our lines are clear. Frustrated, Leo unmuted the mic. Chloe was crying softly. Chloe, the police are on their way. Just stay in your car, lock the doors. He's moving, she whispered, her voice choked with terror. He's walking toward me. He's not walking right. It's like his legs are broken. He's dragging something. The sound came through the phone line clearly now. A soft, wet, scraping sound. Shush thump. Shush thump. Leo's hands were sweating. He pulled up a browser on the studio computer and typed Cypress Lane incident. The top result was a news article from 3 years ago. His heart stuttered. Local woman found deceased on Cypress Lane. The article featured a grainy photo of a smiling young woman. Her name was Chloe Miller. She had been reported missing after leaving her late-night shift at a downtown hotel. Her car was found abandoned on Cypress Lane, out of gas. Her body was discovered a week later in a nearby ravine. The case was never solved. Leo stared at the screen, then at the blinking red light on his phone. Unknown. This wasn't a prank. This was a ghost. Chloe, he said, his voice losing its professional smoothness. What's the date? What day is it for you? It's October 31st. The night she disappeared. 3 years ago to the day. Shush thump. Shush thump. The dragging sound was closer now. He could hear Chloe's ragged breathing, the frantic click of her car doors locking. He's at the window. Her voice was a mere breath. He's looking at me. Oh, God. His face. It's not dark. It's empty. Like something sucked it all out. Leo was frozen. What could he do? How do you help someone who is already dead? Is he witnessing the echo of a tragedy, or is something else happening? Chloe, listen to me, he said, desperation clawing at him. You have to drive. Drive through the fog. I can't. The road ends. The road isn't real. None of this is real for you anymore. You have to move forward. A loud bang shook the phone line. The sound of a fist hitting glass. Chloe screamed, a high, piercing sound of pure terror. He's trying to get in. The window is cracking. Shush thump. Bang. Shush thump. Bang. Leo's mind raced. He was a radio host. His medium was sound, frequency, signal. What if this wasn't just a ghost, but a signal? A recording of a traumatic event, playing out on a loop, and he had somehow tuned into it? He looked at his mixer. He had an idea. It was insane, but it was all he had. Chloe, I'm going to try something. Don't hang up. He grabbed a cable and patched his studio computer directly into the broadcast mixer. He frantically searched for a tone generator website. He found one and set it to emit a pure, high-frequency sine wave, a sound used to clear audio interference. He pushed the fader up. A sharp, piercing tone filled the airwaves, and the phone line. On the other end, Chloe gasped. The light, the flickering light, it's steadying. Bang! The sound was angrier now. Leo adjusted the frequency, lowering it, making it a resonant hum. He remembered an old engineer telling him that certain frequencies could disrupt electronic devices, even create standing waves. The dragging sound stopped. For a moment, there was silence, except for the hum and the rain. Then, a new sound. A voice, but not Chloe's. It was a dry, hollow rasp, like stones grinding together. It came through the phone line, but it also seemed to come from just outside the studio door. You are interrupting the collection. Leo's blood froze. It wasn't just an echo. It was aware. And it knew he was here. "Let her go," Leo whispered into the MIC, his voice shaking. "She is mine." A lost signal. I tidy the static. The doorknob to the soundproof studio began to jiggle. Slowly. Deliberately. Chloe's voice came back, faint but clear. "The fog, it's parting. I can see headlights. I see the diner. Go, Chloe. Now!" Leo yelled. He heard the sound of an engine roaring to life, tires screeching on wet asphalt. The doorknob stopped jiggling. The hollow voice was a whisper now, full of cold fury. "You cannot retune what is already erased. But a new frequency can always be acquired." The red light on the phone line went out. The connection was dead. Leo sat in the sudden silence, his heart pounding. The studio was quiet. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. He took a shaky breath, about to sign off, to get out of this building as fast as he could. He reached for the MIC to give his farewell. But his hand wouldn't move. He tried to turn his head, but his body was locked in place. Paralyzed. From the large window looking into the dark production booth, he saw a reflection. A tall, thin shadow, standing behind his chair. Its head was tilted, a void where a face should be. The green on-air light blinked once, twice, and then turned a deep, bloody red. On the phone panel, the red light for line 1 began to blink again. Unknown. The mixer's faders began to move on their own, sliding up and down as if controlled by an invisible hand. A new sound filtered through his headphones, a sound he knew would soon be broadcast to the sleeping city, the soft, wet, scraping sound of something being dragged. Shush thump. Shush thump. Leo could only watch, trapped in his own chair, as the shadow's hand, cold and insubstantial, reached over his shoulder and gently pushed the microphone fader up. "Please make a horror story on Unsolved Mystery of 30 Miniatures." Of course. Here is a horror story based on an unsolved mystery, designed to be read in about 30 minutes. The 30-minute gap. The file landed on Detective Eva Rostova's desk with a thud that was more final than any sound should be at 7 a.m. It was thin, deceptively so. The label, typed in stark, official font, read, Project Chimera, Incident 7A. Classification, Echo. Eva already knew what it was. Everyone in the department knew. It was the one case everyone was afraid to touch, the ghost story whispered in the break room. The Holloway case. 5 years ago, the renowned physicist, Dr. Alistair Holloway, had been found dead in his state-of-the-art home laboratory. The cause of death was bizarre and instantly classified: total, instantaneous cellular necrosis. It was as if every cell in his body had simply decided to die at the exact same moment. But that wasn't the mystery. The mystery was the 30 minutes preceding his death. According to the security system logs and every external clock, Dr. Holloway had entered his soundproofed lab at 9 p.m. The lab's internal sensors, motion, thermal, audio, recorded uninterrupted activity for exactly 30 minutes. At 9:30 p.m., the lab's emergency beacon triggered, and security found him dead. The problem? The internal data recorder for the lab's crown jewel, a device called the Chimera Array, showed a runtime of 60 minutes. There was a half hour of time inside that lab that existed for the machine, but for no one and nothing else. It was the 30-minute gap. And it had eaten every investigator who'd gotten close. Transfers, early retirements, one suspicious suicide. The file was a career ender. And her boss had just assigned it to her. "Consider it a fresh pair of eyes, Rostova," he'd said, not meeting her gaze. "Close it out. Declare it an unsolvable equipment malfunction." Eva wasn't a superstitious woman. She dealt in evidence, in chain of custody, in the cold, hard facts of forensics. But as she opened the file, a chill settled deep in her bones. The crime scene photos were wrong. Dr. Holloway was slumped over his console, his skin a pale, waxy grey. His eyes were wide open, but they weren't the eyes of a man who had died in shock or pain. They were empty, devoid of any expression at all. It was the look of a doll, a thing that had never been alive in the first place. The key piece of evidence, the one everyone had focused on, was the Chimera Array's data drive. It was a dense, solid-state brick of a thing, designed to withstand an EMP. The data was a mess of quantum state readings and temporal metrics that made no sense to anyone. But one file was different. A simple audio recording from the lab's internal microphone. The log showed it spanned the full 60 minutes. Eva plugged in the drive, her fingers cold. She opened the audio file. The first 30 minutes were mundane, the hum of machinery, Holloway muttering to himself, the clink of tools, the tapping of keys. Standard scientific work. The timestamp hit 9:30 p.m., the moment, according to the outside world, that he died. The audio didn't stop. For a few seconds, there was silence. Not an absence of sound, but a profound, heavy silence that seemed to swallow the very air in her office. Then, a new sound began. A low, resonant hum that was subtly different from the machine's normal drone. It was deeper, more organic, like the purr of some immense, sleeping creature. Then, Dr. Holloway's voice. But it was wrong. It was layered, as if two people were speaking in perfect unison, one slightly out of phase with the other. It's stable. The bridge is stable. My God? I can see it. Eva leaned closer, her heart thudding against her ribs. There was a sound like tearing silk, but magnified 1,000 times. Holloway gasped, a wet, ragged sound. What are you? The light. It's not light. It's a shape. A thought? A new voice entered the recording. It wasn't a voice made by vocal cords. It was the sound of static resolving into syllables, of glass shattering in reverse. It spoke a single word, and the word seemed to bend the audio waveform around it. Observer. Holloway started to whimper. No. No, stay back. You're not supposed to be here. This is just a bridge, a viewing platform. You have opened a door, the static voice intoned. A door must be used. Or closed. There was a scuffling sound, then a sharp crack, the sound of a bone breaking. Holloway cried out, but his cry was cut short. The next sound was the most horrifying thing Eva had ever heard. It was a dry, rustling whisper, like pages of a book being turned by a wind that didn't exist. It was the sound of something being read. Not words on a page, but something else. Something fundamental. The rustling stopped. The static voice spoke again, and this time it held a terrible, mocking familiarity. It was now a perfect imitation of Dr. Holloway's own voice, but drained of all humanity. The data is insufficient. The sample is flawed. The experiment must be replicated. Then, a new sound joined the recording. One that hadn't been there before. A sound that froze the blood in Eva's veins. It was a soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap. 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 It was the sound of someone typing on a keyboard. But Dr. Holloway was dead. The security system showed no one else entered the lab. The recording continued for another 25 minutes. The entire time, the keyboard tapping continued, methodical and relentless, punctuated by the occasional hum of the Chimera Array. It was the sound of work being done. Work that took 30 minutes of time that, officially, never happened. The audio file ended abruptly at the 60-minute mark. Eva sat back, her hands trembling. This wasn't a malfunction. Something had come through whatever bridge Holloway had built. It had read him, learned from him, and then it had used his lab, his body, to continue its work for 30 minutes after his death. But what work? And where was it now? She had to see the lab. The official report said it had been dismantled, the equipment seized. But she knew bureaucracy. Things got lost, stored, forgotten. It took her 3 days to find the right warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was a vast, echoing space filled with pallets of evidence covered in dusty tarps. And there, in a far corner, was the Chimera array. Or what was left of it. It was a monstrous tangle of wires, superconducting coils, and crystalline cores, all centered around a chamber large enough for a man to stand in. As she approached, the air grew cold. The dust motes dancing in the slivers of light from the high windows seemed to slow, their paths becoming erratic. Her watch, a reliable analog timepiece, began to tick irregularly. Tick, tick, tick tick tick. She ignored the primal fear screaming in the back of her skull. This was evidence. She circled the machine. On the main console, the keyboard was covered in a fine layer of grey dust. Except for the keys. The alphanumeric keys were clean, as if they had been recently, meticulously wiped. But it was the chair that made her breath catch. The lab stool in front of the console. The official photos showed Holloway's body on the floor. The stool was untouched. But now, the vinyl seat was depressed, sagging in the center, as if someone had been sitting there for a very, very long time. Tap. Eva spun around. The warehouse was silent. Tap. Tap. The sound was coming from the console. From the clean, wiped keyboard. A single key was moving, pressing down on its own, sinking slowly and then rising again. The R key. Tap. Then the A. Tap. The P. Her blood ran cold. It was typing. Finishing what it started 5 years ago. Tap. L. Tap. 1. Tap. C. Tap. A. Tap. T. Tap. A. Replicate. The humming started then, not from the dead machine in front of her, but from the air itself. The light in the warehouse dimmed, the shadows in the corners deepening into pools of absolute black. The thing from the recording was here. It had never left. It had been waiting. Waiting for another observer. Another sample. The temperature plummeted. Eva's breath fogged in the air. She tried to run, but her feet were leaden. Time was stretching, distorting. She could see the dust motes hanging motionless, frozen in the beams of light. From the deepest shadow, a figure emerged. It was tall and indistinct, a man-shaped hole in reality. It didn't walk, it unfolded towards her. And as it drew closer, its features resolved, pulling data from her own mind, her own fears. It began to look like Dr. Holloway from the crime scene photos, the waxy skin, the empty doll's eyes. Its mouth opened, and the sound that came out was the dry rustling from the recording, the sound of being read. It was reading her now. Learning her. It spoke, and the voice was a horrific amalgam of the static voice and her own, a sound that echoed from a place where time had no meaning. The first sample was flawed, it whispered, now only feet away. The cold radiating from it was absolute. A stressed, aging system. Contaminated data. You are optimal. A fresh perspective. It reached for her, a hand that was not a hand, a construct of twisted light and stolen time. Eva knew, with a certainty that was worse than death, what the 30-minute gap was. It wasn't a gap. It was a foothold. A beachhead. And the invasion had begun 5 years ago, with one curious physicist. It had just been waiting, patiently, for the right person to continue the experiment. She looked at her watch. The second hand was spinning wildly, then stopping, then spinning backwards. She had been in the warehouse for 10 minutes. According to her own perception, the thing was inches from her. But when they found her body an hour later, slumped against the cold warehouse wall, the coroner would estimate her time of death, from the same instantaneous cellular necrosis, at just 10 minutes after she had entered the building. The security log would confirm it. There would be another gap. A 20-minute gap they couldn't explain. And on the dusty console, new words would be found, typed by an unseen hand. Protocol initiated. Awaiting next cycle.